Welcome to the Pro Cheerleading Podcast. This is the only podcast that gives you a raw and unfiltered perspective of what it's really like to be a professional cheerleader. Whether you're currently on a pro team, an alumni, or really curious about what it takes to become a pro cheerleader, the Pro Cheerleading Podcast gives you all the inside scoop and hot topics in the pro cheerleading industry and in-depth interviews of current and former cheerleaders. I'm your host, Mhkeeba. Join me every Wednesday as I reveal the truth behind the Poms. Today, I'm so excited for this episode. I have Jennifer DePaola from Doctors for Dancers. She's the CEO and founder of this amazing resource specifically targeted for dancers, and I'm so excited to have you. Thank you so much for joining us, Jennifer.
Thank you so much for having us. I so appreciate you.
Yes. Well, I'm so excited to finally meet you. We've had a conversation before, but I'm really excited to bring more attention and awareness to the resource that you've established for dancers. One of the things that I kept hearing from from listeners, is just that, there are challenges, I think, with being a professional cheerleader, and some of the teams are far more advanced than others and having medical resources available to dancers, but some people just are kind of stuck figuring it out on their own. And there's a lot of injuries, as you know, so I'm just super excited about this episode to talk about your background as a dancer and then also how you established Doctors for Dancers. So let's start with your background as a dancer.
Yeah, I started probably in the womb, like most dancers, right? I love at first heartbeat of dance. And I started dancing when I was 2. And I loved it. I still remember when I was younger dancing on stage and having my Cabbage Patch doll with my best friend, and in our recital, everybody took a tap and a ballet class. That was like the general thing. And I grew up in Chicago. So that was just like what everybody started off with, was tap and ballet. Like that was your thing. And then when we moved to Arizona, I was able to be introduced to a studio called Plum Dance Studio by Lisa and Sheila Plum. And it just kind of skyrocketed from there. I still remember my first class just jamming out. You're just kind of like meant to be. And I danced for many years and did the competition, convention. I taught, choreographed. I did everything. If I slept, I was probably, I had my legs in the splits on the wall, which was a horrible, horrible mistake. You go to sleep dreaming about the choreography that you just learned that day or your competition coming up. It was just all dance for me, whether it was at high school or, on competitive side for the studio. And then later on in my high school realm, I started at the Dance Source under the direction of Judy and Brian Friedman. And that's really where I feel like everything kind of took off in the high school realm for me of like training. And so back in the day, I thought it was a lot of training. It still is compared to today. But, you dance from Monday through Thursday. You go to school, you go to dance, right? Like that was what you did. You had Friday off. Some of the weekends were off if you didn't have competition or rehearsal. But for the most part, we had our weekends. But even then, we would probably be with our dance friends all the time, right? Like it's just all the time. But for me, I had an injury probably my freshman year in high school is when I started having back pain, lower back pain, and it would go out where I couldn't get up for days. So here I am, 14 years old, and the pain was so bad. I'm like, I can't move. And so we went to see multiple doctors, specialists, chiropractors, people that look in your eyes, naturopaths, whatever my dad could do. He took me to try to get it fixed. And unfortunately, nobody would give us an answer. It was, oh, she's fine, or, oh, she's flexible, or, oh, really? Like, are you sure if something's wrong with you? Like people look at you when you say, I can only put my leg in front of my ear, and usually I can put it behind my ear when I'm stretching. And when people aren't in our realm, they're like, you're fine. Like what's you're an alien. Yeah. Like, what's the problem here? What's going on? So, just going through the process of finding out what was wrong with me, I didn't realize what it took a toll on me mentally, because the people that I was in front of didn't take me seriously. Right. They're like, you're a dancer. But to them, a dancer was nothing. A dancer was, oh, she's cute, or she just does tap or ballet in this little class after school. But people really don't understand the training and the athleticism that goes into dance. They really just don't. If you're not in our community, you just don't understand it. And that's kind of like how you mentioned earlier about like some teams, they have the resources and some of them don't. I'm sure there's a lot of different variables of like what goes into that. But I think for me, my opinion would be is that they really just don't understand what you do. They really don't understand it.
I think it's at the root of almost like every problem or gripe that I probably have had with our community for the longest is just the lack of awareness and appreciation or respect for what we do. And it just carries over in so many different areas. But health and safety is definitely, especially in light of the pandemic and everything, has been something that dancers have been speaking up more about. It's just how well they're taken care of. And it just seems like it's probably such a frustrating process if you're trying to get that kind of medical attention. If you don't have an athletic trainer or somebody that understands like what it is that you're doing, like, hey, we're doing head whips, and like just to ask the right questions or things that you can help trigger or point to what might be going on within your body. So is that kind of what fueled you launching Doctors for Dancers, or how did that all come about?
You know, the funny thing is that it came up in my brain probably about 6 years ago. We were at a dance convention, and full circle, my boys now dance. Full circle. So I'm in the dance industry again. I'm sitting here with actually my old dance teacher, by the way, Judy Friedman, who I grew up with. She's now at the front desk because her grandkids are now dancers.
Oh, that's
and
beautiful.
The girl that I grew up with dancing, that's her studio. And so it was just really this full circle moment as an adult. Seeing all of our kids and family all together was very nostalgic for me. I loved it.
Yeah.
And sitting there, you kind of see the same things happening of kids asking for ice and Advil. And, you know, I'm used to that. It's normalcy, right? It's normal. And we went to a dance convention and I saw somebody there with a massage table, which I've seen numerous times. And usually I'm pretty friendly. I was like, oh, hey, you know, what do you do? She said, I'm a dance medicine specialist. And I said, what is that? What is that? Are there more of you out there? Like, what is this? And so I really started learning about dance medicine, which I didn't know that people actually are out there with a medical background that are learning about dance.
That is incredible and exciting because you wouldn't even think that that exists, number one. And then, yeah, like where are the rest of them and how can you find one? All of those things.
Yeah. So originally I was just like, I was just trying, I have a marketing background. And so I'm like, how do you do this? Like, we need to get you in front of people. And it just kind of stemmed into, we need a resource out there so that dancers can find these people because they're so important for us.
Yeah.
For people to know that there is somebody out there that is studying dance, their craft, their well-being, their love, their heart, their soul, right? Somebody's out there studying what we do. I just instantly felt like we all mattered.
Oh,
do you know what I mean?
Why am I so sentimental today? I'm like, but that's important, and it's something that we get overlooked so much, or just taken for granted in terms of the craft and like how hard we work to build up to this level, and to feel like somebody, like you said, recognized the discipline enough to want to specialize in it. And I don't know if they're all former dancers or what, but it's just a beautiful thing to show that our bodies matter and taking care of ourselves and prolonging our ability to dance matters. And no, I totally feel you on that, like big time.
It is a moment. It really is. It feels good that somebody cares about you, that I don't even know them. And I think that's the same thing for me. Like, I don't know the thousands, millions of dancers out there, but I love all of you. You all have a special place in my heart, and whatever we can do to help reduce the amount of injuries that we see, for us to help have you feel that you are supported and cared and loved, you know, like that's important for us to feel, because like you said, we're usually overlooked. We usually are, we don't matter. The saddest thing that is still happening today is on a high school level is that if a dancer gets injured, do you know that at some high schools that they get turned away because they're not considered an athlete? They actually can't receive services medically from somebody on a school campus because they are labeled as a dancer, because that's not an athlete, so they can't provide services. How is that?
Oh my gosh, that
right?
pisses me off. Wow, that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah. And it happens at some schools and not others. Now that I'm aware of that problem, obviously I did not know that problem. I didn't know that I could go anywhere in high school except to the school nurse, right? If I got injured, and at dance, you know, you just kind of go see your doctor. So that now it's nice that they do have these available but why are they not available to everybody? Why is dance always singled out as that we're not athletes? Like, do you have any idea how many weeks and hours it takes to do a 2-minute piece? Like what we do, the repetition that goes into it, they don't understand. So it really does irk me too, because it should matter whether you're a dancer or not. If somebody's looking for medical services because they're injured, they should be able to receive
that. Absolutely. Yeah. And I don't even know how we got here in terms of looking at cheerleaders or dance teams as like accessories of a sporting team, or I'm sure the NCAA has some sort of title or term for it where they're like spirit squads and not athletes. But I wish that there was definitely, and there probably are efforts to really challenge that, because that's, again, kind of the root of all the problems, like you said. And if it gets down to impacting your ability to receive medical care and attention, that is super problematic. So if you're at a game and you end up getting injured as a cheerleader in high school or even in college, and you're not afforded those resources, that distinction means nothing. So yeah, anyhow, don't get me all riled up. I could definitely go on about that. So how did you go about creating the network, or researching or finding all the specialists that you're able to refer out to people in our community?
It was very difficult at first. It still is very difficult, to be honest. It's like a diamond in the rough when we find someone. I was able to find another person, I mean, just today, which is it's so funny that you said, like, are they dancers? Like the person that I talked to today has been a massage therapist for almost 9 years, but just started dancing the last 2 years. So some of them have never danced, and some of them have just started, or they do have previous dance experiences. It's all the way around. And it's interesting. Probably maybe 90% of the people on our directory are previous dancers.
Okay.
I mean, we have a very high amount. We have a very high amount. And the reason why you see that is the exact same situation that I was in. They got hurt and they didn't have the resources, or they did get hurt and they did have the resources and they saw how amazing it was. And they wanted to provide that further because they have the love of dance. So I love it when I still see our dance specialists at bar or in class. I love it. So they really do understand dance and like what we are doing. So it really helps them be able to take care of us in a different light. One of our goals is that, and we tell all of our dance specialists, because we interview everybody first before they're coming onto the site, is we want any dancer to be able to look and see who's on our site and know when they walk into your office or they come to you, like, these are my people, like they're here to take care of me. And you have that smile and that essence of like, that I'm going to be taken care of. And I think that's important, because for so long when we are in front of another medical professional, we feel like we're a burden, or that we're, being a baby. Like that's how I felt, about expressing my concerns. And, I've heard from multiple dancers and cheerleaders that when they do seek help from their trainers or their resources, they feel like they shouldn't be there.
That's a tough thing, because I think, especially at the pro level, and this is just my experience, when you speak up about an injury, the conversation will immediately shift to what you're missing in terms of practices, being pulled from a game. Like it's really like, oh, now we have to rearrange everything or reset formations. And so you definitely are not really enthusiastic about raising your hand to say, I literally can't perform. Definitely a shift that I hope can happen as well, because if you're not feeling safe to bring up the concerns that you have, and this is just speaking to directors, I think too, but I think it carries over probably when you're talking to a health professional. It's just like you're probably downplaying what you're experiencing rather than really speaking up about the concerns, because it is almost viewed as complaining. It's just a mentality shift that hopefully will happen because you have to speak up to be able to take care of yourself.
Yeah. That's such a big issue, I think, in our community in general, of asking for help. I think that the majority of dancers are hurting every day. We train hard, like no doubt. And sometimes we don't know if that pain is from the training or from an injury, like that it's happening. It already has happened. It's about to happen. And so we kind of just push that down, because all we hear is push, push, push. The show must go on, right? Like you got to just go all the time. And it's never enough. we're always training, constantly growing. And I think that comes from part of that. And also of speaking up at such a young age. The first thing that you're told is you need to sit out, which is the last thing any of us want to do.
Yeah.
Like, so you don't say anything because I'm not going to sit out and watch everybody dance. I'm going to push through this pain. So I'll go out to my dance bag and I'd grab some Tylenol and then I'd come right back in and go to dance. Like, that's what I did. I was always living off of Tylenol, Advil, whatever I could take, whatever was in my bag before class, during class, after class, because I wanted to dance, even though I was having this crazy back pain. Right.
Yeah.
That was my goal. And I feel like with us always hearing that, and then that disappointment, you don't want to disappoint your teammates that they have to restage everything and extra rehearsals. Like that burden is a lot for somebody that's injured, and knowing the effect that it has on your team. And what at any age, professionalism, like you don't want to let anybody down. So again, like full circle moment, like sitting in a competition, like I got to see a little girl be injured and sit in that stand and watch her team compete and cry because she wasn't on stage. And then they won. And then she's like, do I go on stage? Do I not? It was just this horrible, heartbreaking experience that we really don't talk about, how it really does affect the person that's injured of not being able to show up for their teammates. It's not a good position to be in. So I think just talking about injuries more would be helpful. I think also when a dancer says that I don't feel good or I'm injured, we should believe them because it takes a lot for us to even say it.
Yeah.
And then we just want you to care and listen, not for us to say we have to go sit in the corner and watch. So that's why we keep our mouth shut. We keep dancing because I don't want to sit in that corner. So if we would just change the conversation of a dancer saying, hi, Miss So-and-so, I'm not feeling good today. My ankle's kind of hurting. Why don't we ask a few more questions about what that is? Are you still able to dance? Can you still do bar? Can you do some modifications instead? And still keep them there, but we maybe just do some modifications instead. Let the studio owner know. Maybe we have an injury log, even in the dance studio, of watching some of these injuries. So maybe we can watch and see. Just maybe little simple changes like that of accepting that it's okay that you're hurt. Why also dancers, we don't have a recovery station. There are other sports out there that everybody knows every single thing about their injury log, right? Every head to toe, they know what's going on with them. Nobody knows what's going on with our bodies. Imagine if we had the medical team and the people doing the research on us and watching all these stats on our jumps, our leaps, our turns. Like, can you imagine if we had that in there? Right? And we had an athletic trainer being there for our rehearsals. Imagine a physical therapist coming in and watching your choreography and doing a choreography review and saying, okay, what are we looking at here? How many people of you have injuries? Like watching an injury log, right? Because dancers, we don't have an injury log. It's like, what do you got? What do you got? What do you do? Actually, we don't even talk about it, right? We don't even say it.
I was about to say, there's nobody speaking up to even know.
Nobody says it. So again, it's just, we are working with what we have, but what we have is not good enough. We need to do better. And we need to have these resources available on all levels of dance. And we deserve it. Why do we not have medical professionals, but other sports do? And it's because we're not considered a sport and we're not considered an athlete. We're considered a spirit line who shakes it. And that is not what we are. We are so much more than that.
So much more. To reach the professional level in cheerleading and dance, I mean, obviously, all resources are on deck for the players. I get it. But you just can't convince me that there isn't some spillover or some way to share some of those resources. And, we practice in the evenings at these facilities, maybe where, everybody's there during the day. But I just have a hard time thinking that there couldn't be somebody available for practice twice a week or just on call or something, or at least just a process that these teams follow when there is an injury. We're going to sit you out for this evening. We're going to make sure that you get to the athletic trainer tomorrow, or like figuring out like something that's just an established protocol for when there are injuries for the professional cheerleading and dance teams. And like, at least at the top NBA and NFL level, I just can't imagine why that can't be something that could be implemented for everyone. Is that like super far-fetched or pipe dream or what?
It's going to happen. It really is. We will get there. We are fighting every day for better conditions for dancers in all genres, all levels. And I feel like it circles back And this is a story that I mentioned to you before that I feel like is super important. When it comes to asking for things, we usually don't, because we just think this is what we're going to get, and we don't want to cause any ruffles, or we hear, well, you're lucky you got this. So we just are just happy that we have whatever we're given, and we don't want to ask for anything more. And I was at my son's freshman football game in the middle of the week, and there are people there. It's a big football thing. Somebody got injured, and I swear there's probably 5 people that ran on that field. I mean, instantly they had 2 PT tables. They were ready to go and take care of these football players. At high school, on a freshman level, they have all these resources available for these kids, which is amazing, right? Because that's my son. Yeah. But I'm also a dancer at heart, and I would also like this for the dancers. And in that same game, I'm waiting around, and I heard a mom say, you don't have to get on the bus with the football players. You can come home with me. And she says, yeah, but I'm supposed to go on the bus with them. She said, don't worry, you're a dancer. Nobody will notice that you're not even there. I was like, oh, like it broke my heart, because it's true. Like, I mean, let's talk about it. I mean, it's kind of true that they're not going to notice that we're there or not. Right. So I see the vice principal standing, and I said, hey, great game. This is awesome, amazing. I said, I noticed that you have some amazing resources available for your football players. He's like, oh yeah, we have this, we have these volunteers, we have an athletic trainer. He was so proud of all these things that they had for them. So I asked him a question. I already knew the answer, but I thought I'd ask. And I said, do you also provide these kind of resources for the dancers? I mean, low-key, I kind of chuckled inside, because you just know, like, of course we don't. Like, we don't have anything. And he says, we don't have it for the dancers, but we have it for everybody else. Like all the other athletes. And I was like, well, they are athletes too. And he goes, well, yeah, they're athletes. And I said, well, why don't you provide these kind of services to the dancers? And he said, well, they never asked. I didn't know. And that hit me, that they don't know. It wasn't that he didn't want to provide them, or that he didn't believe in those types of services. He just didn't realize that the dance community needed it, because his normalcy is also, they're just there to be a spirit line. They're there just to shake the pom-poms. They just really don't understand the athleticism. And so since that moment, it really did change the way that I come at trying to make these changes within the community, of just really of an understanding that they really don't understand what this is. And that is our job to explain that. So
we try to help them understand. Yeah.
Yeah. So we are on a task.
Upset.
Yes.
Like, how do you not think of this? You definitely have to come at it with just solutions oriented, and also taking into account that maybe people don't realize or know better. We do have to speak up or be willing to advocate for ourselves in that way. And it doesn't always have to be like an us versus them dynamic. I think that comes into play if you make the ask and then you're told no for no good reason. And that obviously things will ratchet up from
I
there.
don't have a problem rising it up from there, because we have had that opportunity where it just wasn't a good enough reason. And, you have to make different situations. And we were in a situation with LSU during the pandemic where they did let them know that they couldn't compete because they didn't have the resources available for the team. They did have the resources, but just they said that the dancers used too many resources, and they just didn't have it because the schedule got changed, and they shared an athletic trainer with the basketball team. So the dancers don't have somebody that specializes in dancers. The cheerleaders, I believe they had somebody that specialized in golf. So they shared that. And they really didn't understand like the athleticism behind it. So we really did have to be able to come and talk about the rehearsals and what they were doing. And they really did understand it. When we were able to talk with LSU and give them a little bit more information, it was really nice to hear their feedback of really trying to listen to and explain what that was. And even though at the end of the day, they weren't able to compete under the LSU umbrella, they were given an athletic trainer that specialized in dancers this season. So might not have won everything, but we are making, small strides into that. And we were able to provide some amazing resources for the LSU team that they created on the side. Since they weren't able to compete with LSU, they created another team called Crew LA.
Uh-huh.
and a studio donated their time so they could rehearse. We had Oshner donate an athletic trainer to be at rehearsals to go ahead and manage that. We were able to
Wow.
donate, and our dance specialist donated her time to provide a choreography review, which reviewed all of their amazing choreography by Carson and Sammy from Tribe 99. They didn't even put a heel section in the hip hop number. I mean, they went all out for this number. So we were able to do this choreography review and really come in from a dancer aspect and say, okay, who's in the heel section? Okay, who's not? And looking, they did have an injury log. So we were able to look at that. So they said, okay, this and that. And there was actually no modifications needed, but she also created a personalized warm up based
Based on what
on
they're
the
doing?
choreography, based on the choreography. Yes.
Yes. Okay. That's
So,
awesome.
right. And that's just that specialization that we do. Just like in football, I'm sure they have a personalized warm up based upon what they are
Absolutely.
going to do.
Based on position group. Yeah. They have
They
based on
do.
position group. Yeah.
Right. So imagine if we had that. I mean, the number one injury for dance is overusage and repetition, right? Like we're always doing the same movement when we are doing that choreography number for 2 minutes. So to be able to have an athletic trainer come in and see if there was anything that she needed to do, if there was any major injuries, really bring that cross training in there. That's so, so, so important. And then you
Mm-hmm.
have the dance specialist aspect of coming in from a health and wellness side to do a choreography review, see if there's any modifications needed. Maybe there's 6 hair whips and she says, hey, can we do 2 instead? I'm sure there's way more than 6 hair whips
Yeah.
in one of these. I'm just being very modest, but like little things like that.
Yeah.
And with the hair whips, like during rehearsal, our physical therapist, Mary Beth Foreman, was able to take a look and really create this warm up to really limit the amount of injuries that we're seeing there. So I will
Mm-hmm.
tell you that LSU's Crew LA was able to travel to Chicago to compete on stage. We flew out and got to meet them there. The athletic
Oh,
trainer
wonderful.
came. We got to see them compete on stage. They blew the house down. They got first. They got first overall. And the number one thing, nobody had any injuries and there were no restaging that needed to be done because they had
Okay.
those resources available to them. And that
Mm-hmm.
really does
Mm-hmm.
speak volumes if we can provide these kind of resources that are available for other athletes in sports and to dance. Imagine what we can do. Imagine the amount of pain that we will not be in. Again, dancers are in
Exactly.
pain every day. So if we can limit that exposure and that time, I mean, why are we not?
I remember seeing the whole LSU story and just their activism. Shout out to all of the dancers that were willing to speak up.
All of them are an amazing group of human beings. The way they
Wow.
support one another. And I feel like that's why a lot of this works is because they had the support of
Yeah.
each other. That's why it worked.
Because
And
sometimes you can lose that with people kind of being frustrated. Sometimes when there are a few that will speak up on a team, either fear or whatever else may be at play will sometimes impact the level of support that you can get from your own team or your director. And so it all factors into how far things can go. It can go a different direction pretty easily. So I'm so happy to hear that they were supportive of each other. I just love hearing us supporting one another because it's not easy putting yourself out there to make some of these changes. And it can be really disheartening if you have a different experience from everything I keep hearing from people.
I feel like that's where I have seen it work is when everybody supports each other and everybody comes together. And that's on all levels. At
Yeah.
any level of any change, that's how it's worked is when they all came together. I've spoken with people that toured with Justin Timberlake, Madonna, where the dancers came together and said, we're not dancing unless XYZ is happening.
Mm,
But it doesn't happen unless you all come
come
together. If
together.
somebody like, oh, no, I don't want to lose my job, it's not happening. So
Yeah.
it really does. It does matter when you have that support. And I don't know about you, but when I feel that I'm supported and loved and cared about, I feel like I'm on top of the world and I can do anything. And that's
Anything. I was about to say you
anything.
feel invincible and you can
Yeah.
kind of go after your biggest and wildest dreams and adventures because you feel that love and support. It's crucial. It's wonderful to see communities kind of tighten up and maybe it's social media or the pandemic, all the things that kind of make people care more. But that support is just so important. I'm really pleased when I look back on the past 3 years because I think even in our space with NFL cheerleaders that were coming forward with lawsuits and kind of how they were like the black sheep of this community, which I remember just my first season, I was just like, this really makes me mad because I mean, they literally were like ostracized, from their teammates. And obviously, with the lawsuits, they lost a lot. And it was just like, because of them, you're benefiting from getting paid minimum wage, or, there's things that have happened. And so I'm really sensitive about that part when there's that lack of support, because it really is unfortunate for people who have the courage to speak up. And if you're just left on Gilligan's Island, so to speak, and just kind of all by yourself, it breaks my heart. I can't stand that. So, I mean, I love hearing stories like this where people were willing to stand with them, because that's how change is made. It doesn't happen any other way. It just doesn't.
It doesn't. I will say that not only was one of my favorite moments of like going to Chicago and actually meeting these people in person and seeing them and seeing the dancers on stage, one of my favorite moments was watching the four of them watch their dancers and cheer with everything that they absolutely had in their bodies. That I had to step back from recording them so I could put them in the shot because it was so amazing, the cheer and the support that they had for them. Just true love and caring for that team. And that was like, woo, like you just, like you're right, you feel it. Yes. You know that moment that we're talking about. And to see the two choreographers there and the two coaches there after everything that we've been through. I mean, it was a long journey to get where we were. Yeah. Long and short journey. We had to make it happen quick, but yeah, it was a moment. It's support, love. Yeah. I think that's what it's really all about within each other, and showing that grace to one another, and knowing that your teammate's having a hard time and you can still be there for them and not ostracize them. That kills me to no end, that when you find, those few that are stepping out to really talk about what's right, they're not trying to get money. I mean, sometimes at the end of the day, we are trying to get more money because we're not getting paid enough. Like, let's be honest. Yeah, right. But it's really about how we're being treated, and that it's being better conditions, and that we deserve more, because we do. When you hear about it, like on the professional level, that these dancers are getting paid peanuts compared to the musicians behind them. I mean, these dancers, they're using their entire bodies, their whole human being through the show, and you get paid 10% of what somebody else does. Like, why is that? Why are we so disposable? Like, why aren't the agencies standing up saying no? Like, they are going to get, 10 grand a show or whatever it is. I don't know what they make on a world tour, but shouldn't be $2,000. Why, they're making $1 million off of merch. I mean, just give the dancers the proceeds off of what you make on one shirt. We'll be good.
Exactly. There's room for conditions to change. And I'm so excited about what we're seeing with Taja Riley and other people coming forward to speak up about conditions, because you would never think just how glamorous everything looks and how amazingly talented these dancers are. I don't know what I even thought that they might get in terms of compensation, but not even just the pay, but like you said, the care for them while they're on tour or showing up for these shoots. And it's really appalling. And I hope that this movement keeps going and that people really are not afraid to hold them accountable, because it's not okay. It's just not.
Right. Like we kind of talked before about, we didn't think that you worked and trained your whole life to then to be treated like this. Like, I've been working and trained my whole life for this. Like, what? At this level, how are we there? And a few years ago, with DaBaby was in the news with how he treated his dancers, we ended up driving out to LA immediately. We were at their meeting to hear the conditions that we're under. And I feel like that might have been my real trigger, was right there of like where the advocacy might have started. Because to hear that these professional dancers are not getting water or food, I mean, that's basic necessities. Hearing that you're in rehearsal all day and you get one pizza to share for 20 people.
What?
Like, look, like,
sorry,
I know,
did not
right?
Hear about this story. What?
Right. Well, these are behind the scenes stories too,
right.
But these are the conditions that are happening to the dancers. And I mean, obviously this is not all camps, but it is most camps.
Too many.
You don't hear very often that. Imagine now, again, you've made it, you're on tour, you're dancing every night, every other night, you're traveling to all these different places, different time zones. It's very hard on your body to be going through this, and you have no medical attention.
And if you get hurt, you're just sent home from tour and replaced. Like, with, yeah,
like that,
that,
like that.
yeah.
And now you've gone
Mm-hmm.
home, and most of the time, the dancers that are on tour, they don't just have a little boo-boo injury. They have an injury that now sends them home for surgery. And now you're at home, and now you have to recover for the next 3 to 6 months. It's not just a little thing, when you're at that level. And I feel like these tours need to have medical professionals on tour with the dancers, not just
Especially
one,
when you see
multiple.
especially when you see how elaborate the sets are and like all the acrobatics and things that are going on, that really needs to change.
Like we need that. And it's like, who do we talk to make that change? That's the thing, is who's in charge of the budget on the tour, and who's making those decisions. Most of the time, again, it comes back to those people that are making the decisions don't know that you need the resources. It really comes down to that again. So it comes to the game of, who do you know? Do you know anybody? So now if we can have the community understand that there is this issue and that we know about it, maybe now next time that you're on tour and you go, oh, that's the tour manager, send us their information. I would be happy to reach out and say, hey, this is what this is, because it benefits you. I don't need to have your name in it. You don't need to be mentioned unless you would like to have a connection. Feel free and reach out to us, at our email address at contact@doctorsfordancers. You can say, hey, I'm on this tour. I feel like this is the person that makes the decisions. Here's their contact information. Leave me out of it, or hey, feel free, I'll connect you in. Other people, sometimes they don't want anybody to know that they're dropping that information. That's totally fine.
And that's fair.
Because that's just the way our industry is. That's just the way it is. But in order for it to make change, we need to talk to the right people, the decision makers, right? Like, how do we get there? And that's where I find that that's my hindrance on really making changes. I don't know who to talk to make those decisions, to talk. I feel like once we are able to make that connection, I feel like they're very open to it, or they at least want to try it out. There are some tours that will provide massages in certain cities, but at the end of the day, some of them are not dance specialists, and they're actually giving you the wrong massage right before you're supposed to go on.
And then you end up being more like, I could see that, like, sore or not feeling,
Right. Yes. Like, some people don't know, like, you shouldn't get a deep tissue massage before you're supposed to perform, like little things like that. But at the end of the day, like, we're dancers and we're hurt. So we're like, get in there, like, we want it. But it's not a good idea for you to do something like that before you go and perform. So like little things like that, it does matter to find the proper people to be able to perform these techniques on you. And that's why Doctors for Dancers is important, because we have people that specialize in dancers and understand what you do, and the details matter for your care in the long run. So, but at the end of the day, if it's us or someone else, at least you're getting some type of care, some type of care, because again, something's better than nothing. So,
were you always kind of in this advocacy space with Doctors for Dancers?
I think I've always been that way my entire life. I really like justice and really trying to care for others. So I think that's always been there. That's definitely been a part of us, but NDCA actually reached out to us. We're on a task force trying to figure out how to make this better for the dancers right now. So we have a task force behind the scenes that we've been working on. So Terry Rowe reached out to me and said, hey, I think you
met Terry.
Terry's
awesome.
Great.
So this is the national, what's the NDCA?
The National Dance Coach Association.
Okay.
Yeah.
She's amazing.
She is amazing.
I talked to her for like 3 hours straight. We were just covering everything. I love that. I
will tell you, that woman really is very well-rounded. She knows a lot of different genres. Even though we're in dance, I don't think outside people understand that. I don't know the ballroom world, like, I don't know that. We're all in different worlds, but we all share the same love. So it doesn't matter where you are. If like things are going on that are wrong, like, how could we help? So she sent us over the YouTube video that Sammy had created. And I was blown away by her advocacy and the way that she was standing up for that video. If you haven't seen it, you have to check it out, because
I will link it in the show notes.
Yeah. And this is not an isolated situation. This is happening at other universities all across. So for the alumni to stand up to LSU for this, obviously they thought it was very important, because they thought that they were treated unjustly, which I truly believe they were as well. And so we said, how can we help? And I was like, I want to talk to that girl. I want to talk to Sammy. Like, I don't know. So it's crazy that we all met. But I think just the shared of love of trying to help others that shouldn't be told that they can't compete because they utilize too many resources and we don't have enough resources for you, I just think is not okay at all.
Yeah.
And so, that's where we have to stand up and let them know, what dancers do. And that's when we were able to, after many attempts, we did get on a phone call with LSU, and we had multiple dance specialists from across the country on that phone call. We had researchers and we had them all on there. It was really a beautiful sight to see, because I can't do this by myself. It's not just me. When we say doctors for dancers, and it's not just me, it's all of our dance specialists. It's all of the dance community fighting every day for better conditions. And it really is going to be by educating the top on what we do, why we need it. And at the end of the day, they are a business too. So the budget goes in there, right? Budget on all life. So we have to let them know we need some of that money over here. You have 100 million at this one program, and we have 10,000 over here. Can we have a little bit more on this side over here?
Move some stuff around. Move some stuff around. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
No, that's so exciting to think of, just being able to show up in that way. Because sometimes when these, if you're dancers and you're trying to get not necessarily a movement started, but you're trying to get momentum or get people to care about the issue that you're raising. And no, we're not doing it for attention. You're really hoping for a solution, or at least a seat at the table so that you can express those concerns. And sometimes they don't take you up on it. Like, they aren't willing to meet with you. They don't want to talk to you. And so being able to have, the resources and support of Doctors for Dancers for LSU Tiger Girls must have been just monumental and just so appreciated. Goodness, because to get that meeting, to be able to put all those specialists and experts in the room, that gets their attention. At the end of the day, you're saving the money. Anyway, don't get me part. At the end of the day, we're getting, some injuries that we're avoiding. And there's also some benefits, obviously, for the universities too, if they can expand their viewpoint as to being responsible to the cheerleaders and dancers in a way that I think they just haven't really fully embraced. But we'll get there.
We're going to get there. It's going to happen. Yeah, it's going to happen one way or another. Like, we're going to be able to get the schools and the colleges on board that dancers are athletes and that they needed to be treated as such. And, you are the university that they are paying to be educated at, or a scholarship. And I feel like if you are a dancer, you're going to want to know which university is going to treat you the right way. And that's important. When you are picking a place, see what kind of resources are available for you when you're picking a college. It's so important. Do you have an athletic trainer that's designated for your team? Unfortunately, most of the answer is probably going to be no.
Yeah.
Now, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
But even asking those questions, I think, is just important to show that people are concerned enough to want to know. And I think that's part of where this all comes from, is just the courage to speak up and to ask those questions and have that expectation that this will be the new norm and that we should all want to push in that direction. I love hearing about the collaboration, right? Because like you said, there's so many different segments within dance, like the ballroom world or the competition, the college, the pro level, but we're all dancers. And then you think about the commercial dance industry where, the dancers that are in music videos or touring with artists, similar issues all across the board. So we might as well all work together and to share those resources. And so that's really why I was super excited to have professional cheerleaders and dancers understand that a resource like Doctors for Dancers exists, because some teams, like I said, are better than others at providing those additional resources, but it's something that's for all dancers. I've been to the website, it'll be linked in the show notes as well. But in addition to finding a dance specialist, what else can people gain from going to Doctors for Dancers for help?
We have some amazing free workshops that are available on YouTube. And one of them that is near and dear to our heart is the 10-minute warm-up. If we can encourage dancers to warm up, that will really, really help reduce the amount of injuries that you see. And some people say, I don't have time for that. So we teamed up with one of our dance specialists, Katie Shar from Modi out of Los Angeles. And we were able to get 10 professional dancers and choreographers in that video to show their support, that it's also well needed. So we have people from all walks of life and background that are in this warm-up video. And it's a 10-minute, 3-song impactful warm-up that you can do anywhere that you want. We really created it in mind for an overall and not just a specific genre for a warm-up, just a 10-minute impactful warm-up to be able to get your juices flowing so that you're ready to go.
That will be linked in the show notes for sure.
That one was really good. And then
Uh-huh.
something that I didn't realize when I was younger either was my hips always popped. And if you ask a dancer, do your hips pop, especially like when you do like the bicycle, when you're doing crunches, like, that hip is popping. That was kind of normal for me. It's actually not normal. So we have another workshop. It's called Stop the Pop. And Lisa Lauer out of Virginia is talking about hip impingement and how these popping actually can affect us and produce additional injuries. So you can hear from dancers having tears from their hips because of this popping is not addressed and affected. So she gives you exercises on how to help eliminate and reduce your popping so that you don't have those hip injuries. So that one would be something that I would definitely recommend as well. But there's some really cool like free videos that we have on there. We have our Instagram page and we post all amazing tips and techniques from our other dance specialists. And definitely check, we're all over the United States. So for somebody that's looking for a dance specialist, whether that's online or in person, we have those available all across. It's really nice to also like read their bios, like what genre are they in? Like where'd they work at? So like where you're typically like just listing your like credentials of your background, we encourage our dance specialists to say where they worked at. So you can see Joffrey and So You Think and World of Dance and, some of the artists that they've worked on, with Janet. And we have some really big dance specialists that really have some amazing backgrounds in the dance world that are able to help. So it's really neat.
That's so exciting. And then even from my view, like looking at the articles and like the posts that are up there as well, I just think it's an awesome resource. Everybody go check it out. And I guess we'll end with one last question.
Yes, ma'am.
What are your future aspirations, for the dance community as it pertains to dancer health and safety and wellness in general? If you could wave your magic wand, what would it be like?
Girl. I have so much. Yeah. I think, right now, the project that we're working on is that we are going to have Doctors for Dancers on tour with a dance convention. And what that is there's hundreds, if not sometimes thousands of dancers at these dance conventions. Mm-hmm. And when we get hurt, usually we're going to our parent or our dance teacher or kind of sitting out in the hallway trying to find some ice. There's no like first aid station for us. And what we would like to do is provide a whole team of dance specialists at these dance conventions and have a recovery center and have it available if you're injured or you have a pre-existing injury. A lot of them have surgeries we're still dancing on that we are now training, right? We're at a convention. We train hard all day long for 3 days straight. We need some recovery. I mean, that's super important that we never do is we never stop. There's no recovery in dance. It's the seasons all year long. We're just dancing every single day. And so now we're seeing a lot of injuries. So we would like to see a recovery center, and we would like it supported and sponsored by other organizations that also believe in what we are doing to help dancers, not just football and basketball and soccer. We want to see dance. Nike just came out with a dance shoe.
Exactly. I was going to say that they're slowly catching on.
They have been now. They have actually been researching this for years because we were in LA a couple of years ago when we heard Nike was making their rounds in LA, meeting with the professional dancers, seeing how they dance, working with Kinjas, Paris Global. This is huge for the dance community that we now have a shoe that's doing after dance for not just football, basketball, and soccer. So I know I'm kind of all over the place because you gave me a really loaded question there.
I did, but I love it.
Yes.
The brands that are starting to take note of us as athletes as well. And like, this is kind of how the world will start to improve for dancers slowly but surely, is just understanding our needs. And that's what gives me hope, at least for our community, is just that teams take notice. The awareness and the education gets leveled up so that everybody's kind of on the same page about what we do, and just more ideas flirt as to how to be more supportive of dancers.
We're definitely trying. I think that a lot of the dancers with the recovery is we want to also supply services that don't cost anything. There's a lot of things that we can do. Just having ice available, like just having an ice pack. Like we don't even have that. Like, if you really think about it, where do we go? Like, I was in one of the biggest studios out of LA, one of the biggest, and somebody got injured while I was there. And I said, hey, do you have an ice pack? And they told me to go next door to the Mexican restaurant to go get some ice.
You're kidding.
So they didn't even have one, let alone they wouldn't even go get it themselves, to help this girl. They told me to go get it. So I just think that we just have to start being kind to each other, like you said, and supporting one another. And I think just combining cheer and dance, we're right next to each other all through high school and middle school. Like, we need to join forces. I don't think they need to be separate. We all love and, do that. Yes, we're all different in our own genre, but I think that if we come together, we can do more with more numbers, right?
Absolutely.
Again, at the beginning, I can't do it by myself, but like, you having this platform to be able to use your voice and advocate for better conditions all the way across, like, this will help, just another person. So whoever's listening to this is another person that can hopefully, maybe reach out to their athletic trainer or to their department and say, hey, what do you think about next season? Probably nothing's going to happen this year, right? People have already had their stuff, but for next year, let's start planning for 2022, 2023 season. Let's start planning ahead now and starting these conversations, because it's not going to just be one conversation. Be ready for 8 to 10 conversations before we actually see change. Don't give up. Don't do it one time and go, oh, they didn't listen, we're all done. It's going to take a minute. And it's taken us a long time to get where we are today. So just remember that when you're in your head, when you really are trying to make change in your own organization or your own school, it's going to take some time. Grab a friend, grab many friends, grab friends from other sports. LSU had the backing from the quarterback. That really spoke volumes. Find your other support systems that are just not within your community. And they will also need some talking to and some coercion of, like, what do you do and why is it important? And we are here to help let them know that you are important. You are an athlete and you do matter. So I think that's important.
It is so, so important. And I hope for everybody listening, like you said, the takeaway could just very well be looking at the dance specialists in your area for your team that you're a part of. And maybe it's just a resource that you're providing to your director where you say, hey, there is Doctors for Dancers out there. They have dance specialists in our area. Do you think as part of orientation, maybe this specialist could come and put on like a presentation of like stretches that we could do, or I don't know, start somewhere, because maybe it's not like they're hired on as like an athletic trainer or whatever for the team, but there's a lot in between leading up to that where maybe you can just spread the word about Doctors for Dancers, and maybe there's an opportunity to benefit from some of the resources that are provided just for your team. Something to think about.
That's great. It's not an all or nothing approach. Something's better than nothing. And our dance specialists love to provide education on what that looks like, your hydration, your recovery, what kind of exercises should we be doing? Are we having a lot of hair whips going on? Like Mary Beth Foreman, she had said, pull your hair back, put it in a ponytail so that it doesn't have that torque. That's what it was. So it doesn't have as much on that. So you're not hurting your neck as much, like little things like that. If you don't understand dance, it's just like those little things do matter, and our necks matter. I'm sure, how many hair whips have you done? Like, your neck hurts. So like, what kind of exercises can we do to strengthen our neck, our shoulders, our back muscles to do those hair whips properly so our necks are not killing us? What kind of recovery should we be doing? Ice, stem, massage. Like, what can we do to recover now that muscle? Like, all those little things matter. And us as an athlete should be given. So like you said, just those little things, bringing out that education can really, really make a difference.
Yeah. So thankful, Jennifer, for your time and just sharing all this helpful information. I will have links to everything that you mentioned in the show notes so people can check it out. Obviously to your Instagram, it's at Doctors for Dancers. The website will be linked as well. But thank you for all that you're doing. I think you are changing the path for so many dancers to enjoy a longer career, probably in dance, a safer one, a healthier one. And so to everyone that's part of your team, thank you for everything that you're doing.
Thank you. We're so excited that it has come into this, and the advocacy work and the education and us all coming together as a community to make this a better place. And we really wake up every day and we just love what we do, because we know at the end of the day, we're really just helping the dance community dance longer and, without as much pain. So we're excited. Thank you again for having us. And thank you so much for what you are trying to provide for your community as well, on really bringing these resources out so that they can have a better team and have a better experience throughout.
Absolutely. And let me know if there's anything that I can do in general with all the initiatives that you're working on. I'd be happy to support. So
Yes, thank you. We are looking for volunteers too. So if there are people out there that are wanting to help, we are definitely looking for some help too. So if anybody wants to volunteer, feel free and reach out to us at contact@doctorsfordancers.com.
perfect. Perfect. I mean, we have all these people in our community that have all these amazing backgrounds and pursuits in college. And if you're even studying medicine, or you might have something to lend to the organization as well that would be right in the same space of what you're passionate about. So absolutely look out for those opportunities to volunteer and contribute. So thank you so much.
If you hear anything that we can help with, let me know. We're happy to get on the phone and see whatever we can do. Sometimes it's just, another voice. So we're happy to help.
Voice.
Yeah.
I'll definitely let you know. I'm excited about this episode. Have a wonderful day. And
you too. I look forward to talking to you soon.
Thanks so much for listening to the Pro Cheerleading Podcast. You can follow your favorite podcast on social media at Pro Cheerleading Podcast on Instagram, at Pro Cheer Podcast on Twitter. We're on Facebook, on YouTube, and you can support your favorite podcast on Patreon. Until next time, keep your eyes on the sidelines.